don't feel like going home, but all my cash is gone. Yeah, I got nothing to do tonight.
Right now, it's time for Tom Maoli's Go Big or Go Home show. Tom Maoli's Go Big or Go Home show will explain how you can start a business, grow your business, fund your idea, or the next multi-million-dollar invention, or how to buy that piece of real estate you've always wanted. Now's your chance to hear it live, right from the serial entrepreneur. It's Tom Maoli's Go Big or Go Home show. Here's Tom Maoli.
Go big or go.
Hi, it's Tom Maoli, serial entrepreneur, high above the towers of Madison Square Garden, and we're here this week with some special guests, and we're gonna talk about debt. We're gonna talk about what is good debt, bad debt, personal debt. When do you take on debt as an entrepreneur? And it's such an important issue in business. People don't understand debt; they're scared of debt, and we want to talk about it. We have two special guests this week too. We're going to bring him on the line now. We have Dan Geltrude, CPA. Dan, are you there, Dan?
I'm here, Tom.
Good. I want to just let everybody out there and all the listeners know. Dan is an expert in financing, accounting, tax topics. Dan is a CPA. He's had guest appearances on Fox News, Sean Hannity, various national radio appearances. Is the master of delivering positive financial karma. See it on his website, www.dangeltrude.com. Dan is an expert in accounting, banking, cybersecurity, divorce, economic forecast, family office, financial expert, financial fraud, forensic accounting, human resources. I mean, I could spend the whole hour talking about Dan Geltrude's resume. The guy's amazing. And Dan, talk to the listeners a little bit about debt, because debt is such, we talk all the time about getting out behind the cubicle, getting into business, becoming an entrepreneur, building wealth and financial security for your family. But talk about debt, because there's good debt, bad debt, personal debt, business debt. Talk to a little about it from your standpoint and what you see.
Sure, Tom. Look, if you're going to be an entrepreneur out there, the one thing you can't be afraid of is debt. And the way you have to look at debt to start with, it can be a positive thing. How? You got to look at it from the standpoint of what is going to be your return on investment related to debt. So, real easy example. Guy like you, Tom, I know you do a lot of real estate investing. Can't do real estate investing without taking on debt.
Tons. You can't do it. It's impossible. You can't do real estate investment without debt. I'm a car dealer. Car dealers are burdened with debt. Every car that sits on the lot, people think you own them. They're all floor plan. There's all debt. You can't have those. I can't sell them to the customers unless I have a floor plan, which is debt. Right.
So if we look at it from this standpoint, you can't be in business without debt there. But not everybody has a car dealership. So let's talk about real estate, because so many people want to get involved in real estate. The simple way to look at it is it's got to give you the return on investment that you want. So, for example, if you're going to go out and borrow money, let's say at 5%, because you want to buy yourself, let's say, a rental property. When you do all the calculations, if that property is going to return 15 or 20% on your debt investment, hey, you're using the bank's money to make money. Am I wrong, Tom?
Amen. And you know what? Listen, that's exactly what, I say when banks want to give me money and I can borrow it at 4 and 5% and I can make 15%, that is not risk, that is opportunity.
Sure it is. Absolutely. And that's what the smart investors are doing. Hey, I know you're friends with Donald Trump. That's how he built his real estate empire, on debt.
Yeah,
using the bank's money.
Right, absolutely. You use the bank's money every time you can. It takes you out of the middle of it. Absolutely. From an accounting standpoint, what about personal debt? Because there's a lot of people that are sitting, a lot of people that listen to my show sit there and they're in cubicles. They're working in corporate America. They're dying to get out and do their own thing. They want to get in their own business. And most of them are sitting there saying, how do I get out of debt? What about personal debt? A lot of people take on personal debt. They run up their credit cards. They over leverage their house. They spend money on vacations. And what about personal debt? What do you feel about that as an accountant?
Well, Tom, that's where we go into the definition of that's bad debt, right? Because it's the same principle. When you're taking out money on your credit card, because let's say You want to buy everybody a really, really nice Christmas present this year, you know, and you're taking on that debt. What's your return on investment? Nothing.
Nothing.
It's putting you further in the hole.
Right.
So when you're talking about personal debt, for the most part, that's what I'm looking at and say, you know what? You really need to stay away from that, particularly credit cards. That's the cardinal sin of debt. In my mind.
Right. Well, we're talking 18, 20%. They're charging 18, 20%, and that's why these, you know, they can't get out from under that debt because when they make their monthly payment, you know, their 10% of it's going towards the principal, the rest is going towards the interest.
Absolutely. That's why the best thing about personal debt is not to be in it in the first place. I think if people follow the rule, I'm taking on debt, where am I placing it? That's really the main question. Am I placing it in something that's going to give me a return on my money, or is this going to put me further in the hole?
Right.
If you follow that principle, I think you're okay.
No, I think you're on the money, and clearly you've got the experience. Your resume's there. You're on the money, exactly what you're saying. Talk about, you know, when you get into business debt, you know, what are the tax advantages of a business debt versus a personal debt?
Well, first of all, if you have an unsecured personal debt, Tom, like a credit card, you get no tax benefit from that. However, I know there's been a lot of talk with tax reform, but still, if you have personal debt related to your home, you're still going to have a mortgage interest deduction. All good there. Now, on business, same principle. We're going to invest in business for two reasons. One, because we're going to get a better return on our debt interest rate. Or, as you mentioned with your car business, you need the working capital. You got to go out and borrow the money because seasonality of businesses and those types of things, you need to bridge the gap.
Right.
However, the good news is you get a tax deduction for it. So now you actually have to factor that into your calculation to say, not only do I get a return on my investment, but I'm also getting tax benefits.
Right. So that's what I always say. If the bank wants
to,
I always say that if the bank wants to give me money at 5% and I can write it off, it's costing me 2.5% from a business standpoint. What about the risk involved in it from a CPA standpoint, from your expertise? I mean, you've been on Fox News, you've been on Sean Hannity. You know, you talk about what's going on with the new tax laws. What about the risk involved? How do you feel about the risk as a CPA?
Well, you know, Tom, like anything else, when you're analyzing risk, you got to say, hey, am I going to be able to pay this back? Because if you can't, you really end up in a big problem there. But look, when people do get in trouble with the banks, when for whatever reason their projections are not right, that return on investment fails, you know what? You got to sit down with the bank. Most of the time, financial institutions are willing to work with you. You want to know why? Because they don't want a bad debt.
Right. Exactly.
So
That's what I always say.
A little something, right?
Right. You know,
So
it's interesting. It's interesting you say that because you talked about Donald Trump, and obviously he's a personal friend. But you talked about him earlier, and obviously prior to the presidency, you know, and I've had conversations with the guy, and you say when he lost his casinos in Atlantic City, you know, he thought it was the end of the world, and then when he sat down with his bankruptcy lawyers and he analyzed it, he said, you know what, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me because the banks had to work with me. I restructured my debt, and all of a sudden I tripled my cash flow.
Right. Made the banks his partners.
Right. He made the banks his partners, and he turned the thing around. Well, listen, Dan, you know, I appreciate it. I know your time's limited tonight, but we want to have you back on the show. We're going to have you on as a special guest. I appreciate you calling in, and I appreciate you answering the question for the listeners. We're going to talk to you soon. It's Dan Geltrude, CPA. Dan, we'll talk to you soon. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, the callers can call in. It's 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-WABC. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be back. Dan, thank you.
Go big or go. Go big or go home. Go big or go home. Go big or go home. Go big or go home.
Hi, it's Tom Maoli, and we're back. Serial Entrepreneur. Go big or go home. Purpose of our show is to get you out behind the cubicle, get you into business, get you into buying real estate, get you flicking the switch in the brain, thinking about your investments, thinking about where you're putting your money. building wealth for your family and your future. That's the purpose of our show. We just finished with Dan Geltrude. Dan is an expert CPA, has been on the Sean Hannity show, has Fox News, has been various national radio appearances, and we're going to bring on our next special guest. We have Dave Stevens. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dave. Dave is an MBA, President, Chief Executive Officer of the Mortgage Bankers Association of America, former assistant to the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Right up my alley. I love this guy. I can't wait to talk to him myself. I want to learn from this, and we're going to bring him on the line. Dan's got amazing experience. I mean, the guy is world-renowned. And, Dave, are you there?
I'm here. Good to be with you.
Dave, how are you? Thank you. Thanks for calling in, and thanks for being on the show. You know, we started talking earlier, and we started talking about debt. And, you know, the whole theme of my show tonight is about debt because, you know, we talk all the time on the show about getting people out from behind the cubicle. We have, you know, people that are just in corporate America. They sit there and they dream all day long and they want to be in their own business. They want to get out. They want to buy real estate. They want to invest. They're trying to figure out how to build wealth for their families and take their careers to the next level. And they're stuck. They're just stuck in that position. They have ideas. They don't know how to do it. You know, a couple weeks ago, we had one of the New York Yankees on, and, you know, we were talking to him and, you know, some great analogies. And they were talking about, you know, you keep 1 foot on the base and 1 foot off, and everybody's afraid, and they're afraid to take that step. But, you know, talk about debt. Obviously, you were the Chief Executive Officer of Mortgage Bankers Association of America. You know, big business in commercial real estate and residential real estate, and Department of Housing and Urban Development. Talk about debt. What's your position on debt? How do you feel about debt, personal debt versus business debt?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question, and obviously you represent how you invest wisely. And there's good debt and bad debt. Good debt are things that will result in personal wealth development. So that's things like investing in real estate that appreciates. And I assume at some point you've talked about the role of investing in real estate and leveraging other people's money, where you know your down payment is a small percentage of the total asset value of the investment you're making, and even a small appreciation rate can help bring great returns.
We had a whole show a couple weeks ago. We talked about investing in commercial real estate. We talked about leverage and how leverage works, if it's positive leverage, if it makes sense. I always say if a bank wants to give me money at 5% and I can make 15%, give it to me all day long. I'm making 10% spread on the money. Obviously, you have to analyze the investment. You have to know what you're investing in. You know, then you get the tax write-offs from it. You get the depreciation, and you could write off the interest. So to me, it's the greatest wealth-building tool in America. It's the greatest inflation hedge in the history of America is commercial real estate.
Totally right. And so, you know, if you think about good debt, it generally comes down to 3 categories. They're not always foolproof because there's downside risk to each of them. One is real estate. The second is individual business, your own sole proprietorships that you invest in. And the third, quite frankly, is student loan debt is considered a good investment, assuming that you understand the downside risk, getting the wrong degree or investing in the type of education that doesn't bring you the return can be the downside risk, but the upside risks tend to be better. Investing in a sole proprietorship or your own business, whatever you do, you know, you need to invest some portion of your earnings in order to allow your business to grow and to build your customer base. So that's number 2. And obviously real estate, which we just talked about. Bad debt, on the other hand, is very clear. Credit card debt is a bad debt, and it should be used as a last resort. Auto loans, as an example, are a bad debt because the investment you're making depreciates immediately once you drive it off the lot.
Well, listen, it's very, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's very interesting you say that because I'm a car dealer. I own car dealerships. I own real estate. I own all kinds of businesses. Car dealerships is one of the businesses that I own. What other way would you recommend that someone buy a car?
Well, you know, the challenge, the downside, you know, if you're looking at a return on investment for debt, it isn't going to be great on a car, but a car is a necessity to have for developing your business and your career. So it's not that you can say, I'm not going to own a car. That doesn't work. You're not going to sit on the bus all day to wait to get to work or necessarily depend on mass transit, depending on where you live and where you work. So you've got to have one, but you just need to realize where the greatest return on your investment comes. Obviously, everybody's going to buy a car, especially if they don't live in, you know, New York's in Manhattan and they can take a great mass transit system. If they live in Jersey or wherever they're commuting from home to work, they're going to have that vehicle. That's a necessity, but it's not necessarily an investment return, and you can't look at it that way. The way you get returns on investment are things like real estate, as we just talked about. That's the best example, and particularly right now, based on demographics. And for the next 10 years, real estate is somewhat of an absolute guaranteed return, simply because of the aging of the millennial generation and their peak years of buying, which they're just walking into, and the just basic fact that real estate investment is going to appreciate, even at a regular and slow, steady pace. It's going to appreciate, and that ability to leverage your down payment on a much larger asset investment and give yourself a home in the residential side is something you just can't walk away from. And there's too much evidence that supports that, from everywhere from the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies State of the Nation's Housing Report that they put out every year, that they just released and talked about how the shortage of housing units and the demand from millennials is going to propel housing growth going forward. But it is important. It's important for people to know, right? You know, if you're using a credit card, especially this time of year, or you're taking cash off of a home equity line of credit to pay debt, credit card debts, that's something you want to try to avoid, and you want to use your debt investment opportunities when you have them to think about things that are going to create growth for your family.
Listen, your knowledge is invaluable. It's amazing, and I got so many questions I want to ask you. I'm going to ask you one more. We're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to come back. But small SBA, right? SBA loans are out there. You want to go and start your own business. I'm Linda McMahon, former chairman of the WWE, president of WWE, personal friend on a committee, on a presidential committee with me. I know her well. She's now ahead of the SBA. What do you feel about SBA loans for people that want to go in business?
Yeah, I think, look, if you're going to go into business, you've got to find a source of liquidity to be able to develop your business. Nobody should be expected to reach into their piggy bank in a country where the average savings is so low and be able to build their business. And so you're going to need a source of capital for that. SBA loans are a great source of capital for that. I will add that home equity, if you have it and you use it in a directed way towards being able to help build your business and you do it with discipline, that can be a second source. But without question, small business loans have been a priority of this current presidential administration and the last one. It's outside of party because political leadership knows to build an economy, you've got to have sources of access to capital, and the SBA provides that, and so people should leverage that in any chance they get, assuming they can qualify for it.
Excellent. Dave, we appreciate your knowledge is invaluable. Please, if you could hold on the line, I have some more questions for you, but we have to take a commercial break. It's Tom Maoli, serial entrepreneur. Go big or go home. When you come back, the phone lines will be open. 1-800-848-WABC. 1-800-848-9222. If anybody has any questions for Dave, remember he is the MBA president and chief executive officer of the Mortgage Bankers Association of America. You got the guy. If you want a question, you want to get a question answered, you got the guy on the line. Former assistant to the U.S. Secretary in the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. He's the guy. We'll be back after our commercial break.
Go big or go. Go big or go home. Go big or go home. Go big or go home. Go big or go home.
Hi, it's Tom Maoli, serial entrepreneur. Go big or go home. We're back, and we have special guest on. We had Dan Geltrude, CPA. We have a special guest, Dave Stevens, who is the MBA president and chief executive officer of the Mortgage Bankers Association of America, former assistant secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Development. We're going to keep Dave on hold for a second because we have Tom Vitri calling in. Tom from Tom, are you there?
Yeah, Tommy, how you doing, buddy?
Tom, Slap Nutrition, we appreciate it. And just for all the listeners, Tom is going to be one of our new sponsors on the show. And Tom, we appreciate all your support. The calls are coming in, and the exposure is amazing. I'm getting emails like crazy all week long from listeners who have questions. And I understand you have some questions. Again, we appreciate your support, and it's good to talk to you. And Slap Nutrition is a nutritional Vitamin Company. Tom Veltri is the CFO, all natural ingredients, new national sponsor, and you can look them up. Their website is weslap.com, weslap.com. This stuff is amazing. I take it. It's unbelievable. Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thanks. Appreciate. Looking forward to a long-term partnership. Very excited to be part of your team.
Absolutely. And, we're on the show. We have Dave Stevens. We're talking about debt. Obviously, your business is, takes on debt. And we're talking about good debt and bad debt. And we're trying to let the listeners know, what's good debt and when do they take on debt. And we have Dave Stevens. Is Dave on the line?
I'm here.
Dave, how you doing? We're back. And we have Tom Vitri, one of our sponsors on the show also. And, Dave, just some of the questions that I thought about, you were talking about a housing shortage. Talk a little bit about that housing shortage, because that's so important, because, we had an entire show on investing in real estate and commercial real estate. And, I started in real estate with two-family houses. And, I went from two-family houses to medical office buildings to shopping centers. Now I build and develop. And, I love commercial real estate. I love it. It's in my blood. But talk a little bit about this housing shortage.
Well, look, we've got a population right now that's going to generate 12 to 14 million new households over the next 10 years. That's fact, not fiction. And the unfortunate reality is we don't have enough entry-level affordable housing units to supply for all these new people who need homes. And so the good news is, if you're in the real estate market and you can take advantage of being able to buy property, it's supply and demand. And the supply is short, the demand is high. And I really think that your listeners can benefit from really recognizing that this is not a phenomenon. It's not a technical growth scenario. This is population driven. It's the biggest generation in history, bigger than the baby boom generation. And they're going to drive demand for household units, and we're just not keeping up building enough entry-level housing to support young families and young individuals buying property. That's nothing but positive for those who either own real estate today or have the ability to buy now. And from that standpoint, this whole supply-demand factor is going to create an environment for the next 10 years at minimum that's going to look very much like it did for the baby boom generation when they hit their peak buying years around 1980 going forward. And it created literally generational wealth for so many Americans today. So,
amazing.
I'm very bullish on real estate, both commercial and residential, particularly residential right now, because there's a lot of other transitional aspects hitting commercial. So you got to be careful about what you invest in. You need professionals like you to advise them. But on the resi side, it's going to be a particularly strong market.
Amazing. That's from the mouth of God. That is the former Assistant Secretary to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Let's talk about, but it's interesting because I ride around, and obviously I'm very astute, and I watch what's going on, and you see these cranes up everywhere. I just got back from Miami. There's cranes. There's more cranes than buildings. And you go through New York City, there's more cranes than buildings. You drive around New Jersey, everywhere you look, they're building, but a lot of what's going on is rental, and you see the baby boomers and they're renting versus buying. What do you feel about that?
I think this is a cycle. There's an advertisement from a big insurance company that the person starts off and they're young and in college. I'm never getting married, and then next thing they're getting married and they have their baby and we're never leaving the city, and next they're buying a home, and then they look at a minivan and they go, we're never buying that car, and then they're driving the minivan. I mean, the reality is that the New York Federal Reserve has always looked at a study of the percentage of 30-year-olds that own real estate, and they do that as a target bullet variable just to look at what's happening in the trend line of people with home ownership. And there's a tipping point at which point young people are going to reach a change in their lifestyle that's going to demand their ability to own a home, because they're going to get married or live with a partner, and they're going to want kids and want more stability, and that's when home ownership occurs. The rental demand right now is absolutely a phenomenon of the millennial generation and the lack of affordable inventory. And by the way, I think rental demand is going to continue, and most data points to that.
I was just going to ask you, what happens to all these rentals when those millennials start buying?
Well, there's a whole lot of the variables we don't have time to go through on the show. We've got retiring, aging baby boomers who are actually downsizing, many of whom are moving back into metropolitan areas and like the luxury. high-end condo units or apartment units that are being built. They may go that route. There's still, this generation is 80 million people strong, this millennial cohort, and so there's still a lot of them that are in the younger age groups that are starting their careers. They're going to rent, so the demand is there, and that's why you see it near urban areas. So whether it's New York or Washington, D.C. or L.A., San Francisco, Miami, you see a lot of units being built because they're trying to house the workforce and the retirement ex-workforce that are moving into these units and are urbanizing away from rural areas.
You preempted my strike because I was going to ask the question. All of this development revolves around transportation, train lines, bus terminals. It's all around transportation. Why?
Absolutely, because people, people's lifestyles are changing, and being working near where you live or near areas of mass transit is an absolute public policy priority. And I can tell you, you don't have to go far. I can talk to my kids. We all have, either whether it's ourselves or we have kids who are in their 20s or 30s or starting their careers. They want to be near areas of mass transit. It's cheaper. It's more affordable. It gets you home quicker. And so that's why, to your point, the focus on transportation between work and home is a critical variable, and that's why you see so much development going near urban employment centers and less so in the rural communities.
That's amazing. It's absolutely it's a boom, and let's go back to debt, because we started this conversation on debt, and we got off on housing because obviously that's all part of where we're going, and you talked about this millennial generation. So you go out, you buy a house. This is the way I was taught. This is the way I learned. You go out, you buy a house, you build up equity in that house, and then you take that equity out and you reinvest it somewhere. Do you reinvest it? Do you in a second home? Do you go into rental property? What is your listen, as Department of Housing and you look, what's good debt, what's bad debt? What do you think?
Well, look, the one thing we all got to realize is you don't want to promote unsustainable debt. So real estate is one of the it'll vary based on the individual and their ability to manage the debt that they own. I mean, The Big Short, if you remember the movie, and their trip to Florida when they found people in odd professions who owned
that movie.
Properties.
That movie.
But the reality is that real estate in a stable growth market is the best investment you can make. What made it a bad investment pre-recession and moving into the recession in 2008 and 9 was the fact that we had a lot of unsustainable programs and products and an outrageous demand built up on false evidence to buy real estate at any price. I think today it's a much more stable environment, and the reality is that when you sell your home, if you buy a home, build up equity, and sell it, you have two choices. You can go on and buy a new home with fresh capital if you have that available. Keep the property you have for rental, or if you don't have the means to do that, you can literally reinvest all that capital in the new home. And quite frankly, the tax bill, as we've seen, protects that. It protects capital gains back to the original laws.
I was just going to ask you about the new tax laws, and obviously they haven't been passed yet. They're still battling it out. I think it's going to go on for a while. I don't see them passing it. Obviously, we're going to a holiday. We may have a government shutdown. We don't want to talk politics, but we want to talk about the tax laws. We talk politics, we'll never win. We won't have any listeners, but we want to talk about the tax laws. What about the write-offs that you get from the investment that you're, of taking these loans and taking on this debt to invest in real estate? Where do you see that going?
Look, I don't want to get into politics, but the way the bill is working through what's called conference, that's a Senate and House joint bill, which is going to come up for votes next week. It keeps the mortgage interest deduction not at $1 million, but at $750,000, which covers most Americans in this country, and it'll cover the majority of the home that you buy. It allows for a property tax deduction. It caps it, but it's still fairly significant, and it protects you on capital gains, and so it still gives preferential advantage to owning real estate. And that tax deductibility should not be overlooked because, as you know, if you can write off the interest and you're in a 30% tax bracket, that means 30% of every interest dollar you spend on your mortgage, which is most of your mortgage in the early years, that means 1/3 of it gets given back to you in terms of a tax deduction. Now, there's other limitations there. I'm not a tax accountant, so you need to talk to your own accountant. And there's the individual deduction, which is important to recognize. But the point is that It's still one of the rare incentives in this country provided to home ownership that doesn't exist in other markets. And
Totally.
combine that with demographics, combine that with still low interest rates at the low end of the 3-decade curve, the shortage of inventory. You just can't pile on enough reasons to buy to offset whatever anybody might want to contradict that with. It's just too strong right now.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. And you see it still staying in the cities. Do you see it coastal? Do you see it, let's talk about, the Jersey Shore, right? New Jersey has this whole issue with the hurricane, and they got wiped out, and you got all these properties on the waterfront. What do you see about those areas? Like, you think that's a good place to invest?
Well, people love the water, right? I've done a ton of business in my career when I was with Freddie Mac and other large banks in Puerto Rico, and I'll just use that as a similar example. That's the worst impacted market as a result of hurricanes. Yes, the Jersey Shore was. We have Texas and we have Florida.
Right.
But these markets will absolutely come back, and I hate to use the word fire sale, but if you can buy into those markets at a reasonable price, you're really getting an amazing opportunity because retirement dollars want to live in coastal markets. So retirement aging baby boomers are not going to want to live in, for the most part, in rural areas. They're going to want to live either near water or near their grandkids. And so that means you're either living in cities or you're living on the waterfront, and maybe a little of both. The Jersey Shore, to me, is always been a strong market, and especially through growing economies, and we've got a growing economy. So
good.
Well, I don't know how you avoid that.
No, listen, I love everything you're saying. It's in my DNA. I love it. I live and breathe this every day. This is what I do. But what about look at the big picture? What about the big picture with the government? And obviously, we had the subprime crash, and the world came to an end, and Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, and the world unraveled, and people were over leveraged. They were borrowing 110% of their home. Where do you see this today?
Yeah, well, that's the good story, right? I mean, whether you like it or hate it, the Dodd-Frank legislation passed through Congress and signed off by the last president creates a lot of rules that completely eliminate the ability to do the kinds of predatory loan products that came out and, quite frankly, help build the sort of house of cards that collapsed. So subprime's illegal. No-doc lending is illegal. Negative amortizing loans are now illegal by law. Interest-only loans are limited. Extended term loans are no longer allowed. You have to legally prove the ability for a borrower to repay their mortgage. That all points to sustainability, and that's why I think real estate's a better bet now than it was a decade or 2 decades ago, because the law bars off all the unsustainable features that created that collapse.
Well, listen, that's amazing news. Obviously you see it from the inside out. That makes it stronger. If people are afraid. It's like the stock market crash. They don't want to put their money into investment properties. They don't want to put their money into secondary housing because they live in fear. Most of the people that are listening to this show are just dying for somebody to get them out and push them to go do it because they live in fear. That's all great news. So it sounds like we're living in a stable economy regarding housing right now.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're in a stable economy on multiple fronts, and actually a growing economy. And, you started this off, I heard in the introduction before I came on, but there's a risk-reward variable in success in life. And if you don't take risks, you're going to have limits to your rewards. And there are downsides, and I'm sure, when I look at your background, you took risks, and you could have failed in them, and, a lot of this, there's timing and opportunity in every step you take. But we're at a point right now where this economy is going to grow for a number of years, no matter what the politics in play are. And we're at, again, the low end of the interest rate cycle. We're in a growth portion of period for our economy, and we've got demographic variables that are just going to create extraordinary demand. And, this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. Don't go into buying real estate for a 1 or 2 year flip kind of view. But if you're in it for the long run and you're looking at real estate and saying, is this a good, stable, long-term investment for my family? I just don't see how you can pick anything else that you can count on more than that.
No, listen, I think you're on the money. I think I see it the way you see it. I wanted to hear it from you. I wanted to hear from the horse's mouth. I take risk every day. I'm at risk every day, but I don't see it as risk. I see it as opportunity. As I said before, and I don't know if you heard, I said when a bank wants to give me money at 5% and I can make 15 and 20%, that's opportunity. That's not risk. Clearly, you have to analyze where you're putting the money, and you have to manage it. You can't just, make a bet and walk away from it. You got to manage it like everything else, But I agree with you. You're on the money, Dave. We're going to take a commercial break. This have Dave Stevenson, MBA president, Chief Executive Officer of the Mortgage Bankers Association of America, former Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. He's the guy. Anyone has questions, Dave, we appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll get to see you soon. And thanks for calling into the show. And we're going to take a commercial break, and it will be back. The phone lines will be open. It's 1-800-848-9222. It's Tom Maoli. Go big or go home. Hi, we're back. It's Tom Maoli, Serial Entrepreneur, Go Big or Go Home show. And we've been talking about debt. We've been talking about good debt, bad debt. We're going to say we have Tom Veltri on the line, who is with SLAP. He's with SLAP Nutrition. Tom is going to be one of our major sponsors of the show. Tom, we just wanted to say thank you. And thanks for calling in. Thanks for all of your support. You heard the show. It's absolutely amazing, the response that we're getting. The callers are calling in. The emails are coming in during the week. It's absolutely amazing. The guests get better and better every week. We've got some amazing guests lined up for the next after the new year. We also have a special announcement. I'm going to be taking the holiday off and spending it with my family, but we have a premiere coming on. We're going to have Jim Totten on the Go Big or Go Home show. It's the Jim Totten Anything and Everything show except politics. Won't talk about politics. We don't talk about politics on the show. We talk about politics. You can't win. He talks about music, sports, entertainment, travel, anything but politics. We have Jim here in the studio tonight. Jim, you want to say hello?
Hey, Tom. How are you tonight?
Doing great. Good. Good. I think all the listeners are looking forward to calling into you and, getting some advice on things other than business, because we've talked about business week after week. It clearly is near and dear to my heart, but I know you want to talk about other things.
Well, it's funny, Tom. One of the things you said to me before I got into the studio, you said, Totten, you ready? I said, I've been ready for 40 years.
Right.
But we're going to be hosting two shows for the next 2 weeks. It's going to be Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So it's going to be one of those, while the cat's away, we're going to be doing a little bit of a different theme. Again, it's going to be anything and everything but politics.
But it's going to be amazing. Jim's a very knowledgeable guy. He's a master. He's a master on a lot of subjects.
As a sales guy, Tom, I know a little about a lot.
Well,
so
listen,
that's what we'll do.
You know what? Listen, as I say, as an entrepreneur, you don't need to know everything. You find the right people that know it, and you get the advice from them. You seek out the advice. Entrepreneur, it's impossible for me to know everything. So I go out and I find the people that know. Just like we had Dave Stevenson. I mean, the guy was amazing, absolutely amazing. Dan Geltrude. Dan's brilliant. I mean, he's listen. They have the guy talking to Sean Hannity and Fox News. Guy is amazing. We have great guests on the show week after week, and we're looking forward to your show, Jim. We appreciate it, and we're hoping that anybody that has any questions, give a call.
Exactly. We've got subjects coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Things like Golden Globes, the NFL playoffs. We've got the Grammys coming up, which, Tom, you're going to have a special announcement about.
Absolutely.
Coming up in February.
Absolutely.
Right here at our studios in the Penn Plaza.
No
So
doubt. No doubt. But we have a caller on the line. We have Bob Booten from Booten, New Jersey, it looks like. Bob? Hello?
Hello.
Bob, how you doing?
All right. Got a question regarding, when you identify a house that you want to flip, who's the first person you consult with?
Well,
with regards to the, what the cost is of the renovation, or, do you know this stuff in your head, or you have to consult with several people, or?
No, listen, I've been doing it for 35 years. The first thing you do is you go out and, obviously get an appraisal on the house. appraiser is going to tell you what the comps in the area are, what the house should sell for, what the other houses on the street sold for in the neighborhood. You can do an analysis. You get a contractor in there, or I would get an inspector. Get an inspector, have them go down. They'll give you a list of what needs to be done to the property. I'm just doing it right now on a couple properties. They'll go through the property and they'll give you a list. You get your list, then you go out and you get prices from a couple different contractors. They'll tell you what you have to put into the property. That'll give you look at the delta between what you're buying it for, what you have to invest in it, and what you think the property is going to be worth when you can sell it. And then you have to look at how long that's going to take and what your return on investment is. But you heard it from the horse's mouth tonight. You can't get it from anybody better than the Secretary to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the United States of America. This guy knows it all. He knows what's going on in the marketplace. Housing is a place to be. It's clearly a place to put your money. I mean, he's bullish on it, so why shouldn't you be? I mean, I think
I'm bullish on it. Just not sure what to do. In other words, if I'm looking at a house and say, okay, this house can be, we can make this house from a 2-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, and from a 2.5 bath, from one bath to 2.5, for argument's sake, and you're going to be putting that kind of money into it. But the way that by the time you put in a bid, I mean, you kind of have to have all the information readily available, because it's at least in some of the areas around here, it's very competitive.
Well, listen, housing is starting to fly off the market. You've heard it again from David. It's taken off. It's a great time to invest in it. You gotta move quick. You gotta put your list of questions together. Get your professionals lined up now before you find the property. This way, you're ready to go. You're locked and loaded, and you're ready to go. And I think that's the right move, the right thing to do. I think that's the right process to follow. I'd love to continue to talk to you. We'll talk more. You have the number. We're gonna run out of time here because we have a couple things we have to talk about. And I appreciate you calling in and asking the question. Hopefully I answered your question. The phone lines are still open. It's 800-848-WABC, 800-848-9222. We're talking about debt. We talked about debt, good debt, bad debt. We're going to come to the end of the show here, and the time just goes so quickly week after week, and there's just never enough time. And I had Barry Farber on the phone. Barry was out, shooting off T-shirts in Times Square. Go big or go home T-shirts. He called in, and I couldn't get him on the phone fast enough because I was so deep into the conversations. Barry, thanks for everything you do. He's out there. He's handing out T-shirts in Times Square tonight. And, we want to talk about, as I always say on my show, I said, listen, you can't hit the ball unless you swing the bat. You heard it direct from Dave. You heard it from Dan Geltrude. You got to take the step. You got to get out from behind the cubicle. You got to take the risk. No, you're never gonna make or hedge your investment and your risk factor better than where we're at today. The housing market is booming. It's time to do it. It's time to go borrow money off your home, take home equities, take risk, take on the debt. That's good debt. You heard it. Credit card debt is bad debt. Don't take on credit card debt. He talked a little bit about car debt. I'm a car dealer. I won't disagree with him, but I'll tell you that if I had money, I wouldn't put it into a car. I'd rather borrow the money. I could write that off, and then I take that money and I go buy real estate, as they talked about. Again, as I say, you can't hit the ball unless you swing the bat. Winners never quit. Quitters never win. You got to take the shot. You got to get out from behind the cubicle. We're going into a new year. It's 2018. Make it a New Year's resolution. We have, again, I'm going to be taking a couple-week break here, but we have the Jim Totten Anything and Everything show. Jim is going to be amazing. Call in, ask your questions. Jim, you got something to say?
Tom, thank you. I just wanted to thank you very much. It's a great opportunity, and I'll keep the seat warm while you're on hiatus for the holidays. But we'll have a good time, and we'll talk to a lot of the people out there.
Absolutely. Thanks. And from Go Big and Go Home, we wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And again, listen to come in, dial in, listen to Jim Totten. We thank Dave Stevens and Dan Geltrude for calling in today, and we look forward to the next show. And
rock and roll.